Hey guys, welcome to the video. So the Canon EOS R, this has been covered so many times by a numerous amount of different YouTubers, and different people have different things to say about this camera, reasons why they like it, reasons why they condemn it. This camera has really caused a divide within our community. It splits the line between people who have put up with Canon and who are excited about this new line of cameras. And it also has sent people over to Sony and Fujifilm, Panasonic, companies like that. So regardless of where you stand on this Canon EOS R debate, we're gonna be talking today about why you should consider switching to not only Canon as a brand, but their specific camera, the EOS R. Why it's a great tool to help capture stories, to help tell stories effectively. And today we're not only gonna be taking a look at my perspective, but also the perspective of another fellow filmmaker. His name is Tim Kromer. He's a very talented individual. He's a very talented individual who bases his work out of Minneapolis. He does weddings, has worked for a Christian organization called Pulse, creating beautiful, visually stunning videos for them. But I'll let Tim kind of tell you guys about himself a little bit. And we're gonna be taking a look at his gear setup, what his needs are, and maybe why switching to the EOS R would be a good idea for him and why it could suit him pretty well. And we'll be talking about why it could suit you guys pretty well, or maybe why it wouldn't. So, a lot to think about with this camera.
Let's see that camera I've been hearing a lot about.
Hi everybody, playing out with Ben's camera that he has. I'm Tim, welcome, link in the description to my channel, because Ben's probably already prefaced that already, I'm betting. So, I'm gonna say a little bit of like why I'm switching to Canon. There's a lot of reasons. One mainly is the color science. I've used Canon for most of my career when it comes to professional work. I got a Sony camera because I thought it was the move to go. I used S-Log2 for forever, then tried a bunch of other different profiles with it. And I just found that whenever, like the color tweaking, whenever I got into post just wasn't there with my knowledge of color and science. So I just felt like I couldn't fully control it. But I've rented the EOS R before. We're gonna shoot with it today. I have no idea if we're shooting in C-Log or not. Ben knows, so.
Yes, we are.
We are shooting in C-Log, so this will be interesting. If you guys aren't really a camera nerd, this might not be the video for you, but we're gonna do a bunch of shooting downtown today. This is Stillwater. Welcome to Minnesota, and we'll see how this goes.
With a broken heart, I guess that sometimes good things fall apart.
You ready?
Hope you guys like those videos. I would love to hear your thoughts as to what you liked about both of them, what you didn't like about maybe both of them. Feel free to drop those in the comment section below. We had a ton of fun with this. Tim and I, we went downtown Stillwater, as you guys might have been able to tell if you're a Minnesotan local. And there we got a ton of footage. He shot me, well, he didn't shoot me. He got video of me wearing some Cuts clothing shirts. We actually swapped shirts halfway through the shoot too, and just got some really cool B-roll of me. And it was because he wanted to get a hands-on with the EOS R, but besides me asking him a few questions about the EOS R and about his current setup with the Sony a6500, he shot all of the footage. And ideally, I would have shot my own B-roll of him because we were doing a little challenge. So he did a phenomenal job. He has a really great eye for getting great shots, a wide variety of shots, so naturally it made editing very easy for me to do. And when I sat down to cut the footage up and just watch through all of the clips that Tim had recorded, I was blown away. The visuals of it looked amazing, and even in flat C-Log, I could just tell that they would be super fun to work with. My lenses that he used allowed him to be far enough away from me without having to break that 6-foot gap.
All right, man. So you're coming from the
Pro tip, up higher.
So you're coming from the A6500, right?
Yes.
What is something that you liked? Like, what did you like most about that camera?
A6500 is definitely form factor. I took it to a bunch of different countries. I took it to Northern Ireland, I took it to Ireland, and I took it to Scotland, all on a big trip from school. And like, I loved that I could throw it into my backpack and just kind of know that when I whipped it out, I could easily get a shot because of how small it was. I'd say the biggest gripe I had with it was battery life and inconsistent color, like I talked about earlier. But overall, I did love the camera. It was really good. If I had to say like a first like small APS-C mirrorless to recommend, I would highly recommend actually the A6500 because of it's cheaper right now. You can probably find a used body for $650, $600. And then lenses for them, if you go with the APS-C route right away, genuine like APS-C, like a 30mm 1.4 is $250.
Oh wow.
And like you can get that setup alone will get you clients. They will get you could shoot an entire wedding on that setup alone and you would easily make back what you got for spending that money on that camera. You get 4K, you get 120 FPS. Granted, both of them are kind of cropped. That's another thing that I kind of don't like about Sony, is that you don't ever get full frame 4K in their APS-C, except for their newest one, their A6600 does have it, but the A65 doesn't. And then same with the 120 FPS, it's kind of like, it's cropped in even more than the already cropped in. So like a 30mm, which is technically like a 50mm on a full frame equivalent at f2, is now a 65mm at f2.2. So like that, for me, I really love full frame and I really love the control that full frame gives you when it comes to how wide you're going, how tight you're going, your bokeh depth, how shallow of depth of field you're shooting when it comes to kind of any different project. I've worked with some brands, I've worked with a lot of my clients are weddings, so having that full frame look really helps with that kind of work. So yeah, those are just kind of my thoughts on the A6600. And then why I'm moving to the EOS R is for a bunch of different reasons. One, mainly is battery life, and two is form factor. The flip out screen is huge. Like being able to the number one thing that you're gonna want to pay attention to when you're using a camera is how to frame your shots properly. And by using like a flip out screen, you have more and more control over that. So like with my camera, it just flips out from the back. It doesn't fully actually like articulate around. So I had problems being able to frame my shot right, because sometimes I'd set my camera down and guess and say, well, I hope that looks good, and I would end up having it be totally wrong. So when it comes to that, it's just composition is key, and that's where like this camera comes in. Plus the future lens selection from the R is fantastic. The 15 to 35 2.8, the 24 to 70 2.8, and the 70 to 200, which is tiny. Like if you've ever seen a 70 to 200, you know how big those things are. When it comes to the RF one, it is literally the small. And I genuinely mean that because I've tested it and it is fantastic to work with. So like those are just like a couple of my future hopes, and I'm stoked on the EOS R to come in the mail very soon.
For sure. So I know it's super easy to get caught up in the honeymoon phase, especially like right when you get your camera. What are some of the things that you kind of have conceived that you're not looking forward to, or some of the downsides of going to the EOS R?
When it comes to downsides of using a different camera, I just say it's getting used to it. Like for me, I bought my Sony, and then I had 2 weeks until I left for that international trip. I had to learn that camera like the back of my hand in 2 weeks. So what I did is what anybody else would do. They shot with it every single day for 2 weeks to get used to it. So I did that. I figured out my best settings as far as I could and got to a point where I'm like, okay, I can go on this trip, and I have confidence going into it that I know my camera well enough to be able to use it. Say switching to the R for me is not going to be difficult because I'm used to Canon menu systems. I know how a Canon camera operates very well. I have a 5D Mark II at home that is just like a backup. That's my sister's camera that I borrow from time to time, and I've used a Mark IV for work a bunch in the past. So I'd say switching to the R, the only difference is going to be not bumping anything. As you might have noticed, like there's different ways to set it up with the touch bar feature, with the record button, with the frame rates, with all these other different little things. So it's just like making sure that I have it set up best to how I use a camera, and just kind of making sure that I get that all proper and fully ready.
I'm assuming that you guys already know a little bit about what this thing can do, but just to quickly overview, the EOS R is Canon's first ever rendition of a full frame mirrorless camera. People were shocked, people were upset. For the first maybe 9 months to a year, everyone hated this camera. And then once more established creators like Maddie Hapoya, Peter McKinnon, and just about every other creator started using this camera, people started flocking to it. And I can't blame them, because the reason why the 1DX Mark II was like my dream camera was because of Peter McKinnon. So, I mean, it makes sense that if these legends are switching to it without having Canon paying them to do it or sponsoring them to make videos saying good things about it, there must be a reason why this camera would attract those individuals. And there certainly is. The image is just stunning. And that for me has been the biggest reason why I have loved this camera. Sure, it's a great 1080p camera and it even shoots really solid 4K. We're in 4K right now, shooting at 480 megabits per second, which is pretty, it's got a lot of information, a lot of data within that codec. So this talking head portion is shot in 4K on the Canon EOS R. The bits with Tim have been shot in 1080p, just so that I could kind of vlog and get a wider field of view so that I could be talking with Tim in the frame and whatnot. Ultimately, I think one of the big reasons why this camera is just such a great purchase for most people and for people like Tim and I is because it's very streamlined. The menu system is super easy to learn. And once you get those kind of annoyances out of the way, you can really focus in on the creativity, composing your shots well, making sure that you have the proper exposure and white balance without really having to double and triple check because you already know the system so well. It's the beauty of efficiency that you can develop with this camera. There's not a huge learning curve. I would say the biggest learning curve to this camera would probably be color grading the footage and also learning to master Kelvin temperature, because with the touch bar on the back, what I found to be the best way to implement it into my workflow is to link it to my white balance and furthermore the white balance temperature. So being on fully manual white balance has been helpful and I've definitely learned a lot from it. When you're not balanced properly, when your whites aren't balanced properly, if it's too warm or too cool, your footage really punishes you for it. And I think maybe if I was outputting to a 10-bit signal from like an Atomos Ninja 5 or something, maybe that would be a little bit more forgiving on me. But it's been good to learn because you really have to look at the scene, look at what you see on the screen, and then you have to gauge it really accurately. So that's definitely something that has improved my level of filmmaking, is being able to learn how to use proper white balance. And so yeah, ultimately I do like the touch bar, I'm sorry. It's interesting that Canon for their next generation of these R cameras, they're gonna be taking away the touch bar, but it's kind of cool having the one and only camera that has that version of Canon's touch bar. Sorry, I just forgot to turn on one of my lights here, so it's gonna look a little bit different for the rest of the video. For me, inspiration to shoot has been a big thing that's really stemmed out of simply owning this camera. When I've had previous bodies and previous brands like Panasonic and Sony, and even other Canon models like the M50 and the M6 Mark II, I just didn't feel all that inspired to go out and shoot. Ever since I had the EOS RP and now the EOS R, that has been changed dramatically. I've been much more motivated to take my camera, just my camera, and not really do much of anything with phone photography or videography because I have this beautiful piece of gear that can really accomplish stunning images. So even though I'm not much of a photographer, I've really been motivated to go out and take stills, go out and take road trip adventures dedicated to just capturing stunning images. And it's been really good owning this camera. Just walking around with it, I mean, you look like someone who takes photos or takes videos. And even though that is a little bit more towards the vain side of photography and videography, it certainly does help to keep me motivated when I'm on a shoot, and also it helps to just build up that motivation to go on a shoot. And with my previous cameras, I just wasn't really that motivated to go out and do something that was kind of unplanned. And so planning played a bigger role with having those other cameras because I really had to draw up the inspiration before I could channel it really. Now there's just much more spontaneity to my shooting style and my creativity. And I partially attribute that to owning just this camera because I know that whatever the setting I'm in, I have a pretty good chance of being able to capture a stunning image. And as I develop experience and really hone in my talent and skill, that chance of getting a good image will no longer be chance, it will be like guarantee, but I still certainly have things to learn. This is just such a fun journey, and having this camera alongside me, having this be a part of my journey, has been truly a blessing. And you know, when you're selecting a camera, it's really an intricate process. You have to pick and choose carefully what is going to be, what is going to aid you, what's going to be by your side as you're taking this part of your photography, of your videography journey. So you have to be very selective about it. And really what I recommend is that you draw up a pros and cons list and a list of needs that you have. So say for instance, if you need 1080p at 120 frames per second, you're just gonna have to look elsewhere, or you're gonna have to wait for the EOS R6 and or R5. But there certainly are things that this camera will just not suit your needs for. If you're a wedding photographer and you need dual read and write capabilities with 2 SD cards, again, this isn't gonna be your camera. However, I do think dual SD card slots are kind of stupid, not because of what they do, but because of how people have obsessed over them. When Sony came out with some of their cameras a few years ago and they didn't have any dual SD card slots, no one cared. No one really cared at all. No one complained about it. The Canon 1DX2 up until, 7-8 months ago, that camera was revered. Everybody wanted it. Whether you were doing weddings, music videos, corporate shoots, if you were a videographer, you wanted that camera. It was just plain and simple. And that camera was $6,000, and for $6,000, you weren't getting the ability to dual record onto 2 media cards. I mean, it did have 2 slots, but you couldn't dual record video. So that basically turned it into a 1 card slot camera, similar to the EOS R. So for most videographers, I would dare say that dual SD cards isn't really a big deal. Some major heavy-hitting cinema cameras don't even have it. And so if you just take general good care of your media, if you don't delete individual files from your computer, format the card only in your camera, and just take care of your SD card, probably shouldn't have anything to worry about. Probably my favorite thing about this camera is the versatility with it. If I want an image that's a little bit tighter, say for example, I only have 1 lens with me, I can punch in with the 4K mode. I know it's gonna look fantastic because the 4K is pretty sharp, it's pretty clean, and there have been comparison tests done with the A7 III and the EOS R, showing that both 4K images are very close as far as quality goes, with the A7 III being maybe a little bit sharper. I know in 4K with 480 megabits per second, I'm gonna have a lot of data to work with, and color grading is gonna be very pleasant. If I do want a wider frame and a wider shot, I can just punch out to 1080p full frame, and I know that even upsampled to 4K, the image is still gonna look stunning. This camera can wear a lot of hats pretty well, no matter what style of videography you're into, what kind of photographer you're into, unless you're a sports or wildlife shooter, then it's gonna be a little tricky. I've done some photo shoots that would fall under a sports photographer category with this camera, and you really gotta time your shots. You gotta time it properly because you're not able to shoot fast at all. So that has been a little bit challenging, and there's certainly been points where I've just completely missed the action and I pressed the shutter at the wrong moment. So yeah, a different camera certainly would be helpful for like my sports specific events, but I don't really get those clients enough to warrant me buying something like a 1DX. So again, just assess your needs, really figure out what it is you want to have in a camera body. And ultimately, it's really important to make sure that you're focusing on the bigger picture. So not just the camera body, but really looking at like what glass do you use? What lenses can you add into your toolkit that can help you tell the visual story you're looking to tell? There's so many factors to consider. Don't stress it with camera bodies. If you have a feeling that this camera could help you or could be the one for you, get it or rent it, try it out. Do exactly what I did with Tim. I just let him borrow it. So borrow it from a friend, rent it from a rental company, and if you like it, go ahead and get it. So basically I did my research, but not only that, I know that this camera can stay with me for the long haul, and it eventually can be grandfathered into a B camera roll once I graduate college, once I have enough money to buy the R6 or the R5 or the R25, whatever is most relevant at that point. But so yeah, be realistic about what you need and what you want from your camera. If you know that you need full frame 4K, maybe get this camera, cop the speed booster. Who knows? There are some workarounds that you can implement with this camera to make it more ideal for your shooting needs, but at the end of the day, it is just a tool, and so am I. I try not to be, because I love you guys. I want to spread love and positivity, especially through this channel, and yeah, I'm just ranting. So if you enjoyed this video, please drop it a like. It's been fun. I think this might be one of the last EOS R videos that I will be making, at least for a while. I know there's plenty of content out there on this topic and on this camera, so I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Give it a like, I already said that. Don't forget to subscribe if you enjoy the content that I'm creating, and share this video with your friends if you found any of the information to be useful. Make sure to hit up Tim. Go check out his channel right here, and we will see you guys in the next video. So peace out, guys. We'll catch you later. Apparently he did pick up an EOS R, so I'm excited to see what his kit, what his setup is looking like, and of course he just got it recently, so it's by no means complete and finished, but because you know there's a difference between using a camera, using an EOS R, and owning one for yourself. And today, this is like 4 days after we did the shoot, so he was very fast at picking up an EOS R. Sit down right here, wait for him to find my house because he drove right by it. There he is. How's it going, huh?
Good, bro.
Dude, look at that.
Purchased it. She's mine. There you
What
go.
was, let's
Here's
see,
the SD card.
you got the battery grip?
I've got the battery grip, the 35mm RF, and the EOS R.
Dude, that's so sick.
And it came with 3 batteries, all Canon.
Nice, nice.
So with the charger and the whole, like all the box stuff is in the car. Like, it's literally brand spanking new.
Oh, wow.
It's amazing. Like, I haven't even touched it or set it up yet.
Did it
but
come with the kit lens?
It didn't come with a kit lens because he sold
Okay.
that. So the guy who I bought it from gave me all of this, which is like $3,100 in value for $2,300. I saved $700 and got my dream camera. I'll take it.
I mean, he took an L, but you got...
No, he's fully invested in Fujifilm. It's like
Okay.
him having this made no sense anyways.
Sure.
So me owning it now makes total sense for me, and I might even, he actually might be a wedding client for me now, which is
nice,
super
man.
awesome. So glad you got the SD card.
Yeah, thank you
Yeah.
for dropping by. Dude,
Absolutely.
I'm so